It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. Let's begin a Wednesday. Hey, kids, it's the first day of summer. Gary?
Well,
how are you?
The Hunter Biden story will get you hot, won't it?
Yeah, right.
Let's first go to some audio from CBS yesterday. Here we go.
All right.
Gene Rossi, a former Justice Department official who handled tax cases, told CBS News the failure to pay tax on more than $3 million, even though now repaid, is a serious violation.
If this were Hunter Smith instead of Hunter Biden, I think you would have a very much more aggressive prosecution.
Okay, that's CBS. Now let's actually go to MSNBC.
All right.
This is MSNBC now. Here we go. All right.
The Republicans will say the laptop has tons of proof that there was that Hunter Biden participated in corruption, that there's financial proof that President Biden and Hunter Biden were connected in the gains that were made overseas by Hunter Biden. Have you ever seen any proof of that?
No, I know. I mean, again, I've seen people wave various random emails around. I've never seen it.
Okay, that was one, okay, which obviously he's just saying, I didn't see the laptop, that the emails are just, basically made up. But then this was really interesting.
Do you have any idea if Hunter Biden's laptop had anything to do with this investigation? Was it used?
I don't. No, I don't. I mean,
were you ever asked about it?
I can't recall being asked about it, to be honest with you. But there's nothing about the situation that's been filed that has a thing to do with the laptop.
Why not?
I don't know. You'd have to ask the prosecutors.
Now that's Hunter Biden's lawyer. Yesterday,
yeah,
so
right.
The key thing is everyone knows, and you and I were talking about Andrew McCarthy's column saying
he's become quite humorous.
He has,
but it's the absurdity in this entire ordeal and a number of things that really lend to that humor and the way he started his coverage on this yesterday.
We're saying this was the wrong solstice.
Yeah.
I thought this would be done, right before Christmas when nobody would be paying attention. And the headline is the intentionally provocative Hunter Biden plea deal. This was almost as in your face as you could get from the Justice Department. And when you read McCarthy, basically, it's like, okay, what they're doing is everybody knows this is the evidence that there's a two-tier system of justice, and this administration actually wants you to know that.
Right.
They want you to know that because they believe if you know that the Republicans are much more likely, this is what they believe, the Republicans now are much more likely to nominate Donald Trump for president, and they'll win, and they can continue doing exactly what they've been doing because this was as in your face as possible. You know, you had that one lawyer for the the rapper Kodak Black who apparently had a gun violation like Hunter Biden. 3 years in prison. You look at the Wesley Snipes case.
The tax thing.
Exactly, the tax thing. He did a long time.
Yeah.
He evaded taxes. This isn't about not paying your taxes, as they even said. Well, there's, it's a serious thing when you don't pay your taxes. No, it's not.
No.
It's a serious thing when you evade taxes, when you don't report income.
Right. If you make a mistake or if something happens and you owe taxes and you don't pay them, that's one thing. When you deliberately avoid paying the taxes, that's tax evasion. That's what they look at. Right. That's very serious. That's what they come after you for.
You do jail time for that. When you don't report income on $3 million. When you don't report income, and that's apparently what they got him on for this one. Whether there's other income, I don't know.
Right.
But the $3 million that he did not report, and then later on he had a friend give him a loan to pay it off.
Yeah.
And so, but that was the admission, and that was, I think, I've read so much. I believe it was the New York Post that said, "What took so long? We've known all of these things for a long
These are the
time.
things. Yeah, these are the things that have been sitting on the table that nobody has even denied.
Right. His admission was already there.
Right.
That he evaded taxes. We knew that when they eventually he got the loan to pay it off from the friend. The gun charge, as they said, he admitted in his book.
Yeah. Right.
And so it goes, everybody knows. It goes, this isn't like, it goes, what took 5 years? He already told us all of this.
Yeah.
And so, when you see that, and then, I think it was the rap star's lawyer who said, look at what people get jail time for.
Yeah.
Look at, is it Felicia Huffman? Is that the actress's name?
Yeah. Was it Felicia Huffman that got hit with the college admission thing?
The college admission thing,
Yeah.
and then Lori, is it the
Lori McLaughlin or McLaughlin?
No, Laughlin. Lori Laughlin.
Yeah.
She got hit. She did jail time.
Yeah.
For getting their kids into college, and he brought that up, or I don't know if it was a he, but the lawyer for the rap star brought that up also. I don't want to get into any type of gender controversy here, but it's like, this is what the federal government will go after and put you in jail for, and then this was out. Well, this was basically a lie and try. Lied on the application, but we don't prosecute. We really don't prosecute lie and try. It wasn't lie and try.
Yeah,
it was lie and succeeding.
Exactly.
And then being reckless with the firearm after lying.
Mm-hmm.
And so you
From
look
start
at this,
to finish,
and you really look at this, and I don't think there's any way to look at it except, remember, they just on the IRS they got rid of the investigative team. Did they put a new one in? I mean, that was just weeks ago, and all of a sudden, boom, this thing's over with the IRS. The whole thing's over. You cannot get as in your face the administration and the Justice Department, and you can add on to that Comer. You can add on that Comer getting, trying to look at the other two documents on the bribery documents, where he said you couldn't get hell or high water out of it because half of it was what's the word for it when they just redacted?
Yeah, right.
Half of it was redacted. You couldn't get anything out of it whatsoever. And then you have basically Hunter Biden's lawyers come out and say the case is closed, and the federal government say no, it isn't, because as long as the federal government can say no, it isn't, they don't have to hand anything over because they'll just continue to say the investigation is going, so we're not going to give Congress anything here because the investigation's going on. As the Hunter Biden lawyers say, the investigation's over. Well, if the investigation's over, you should hand it in.
Yeah, right. It's interesting because in his piece yesterday, Andrew McCarthy included what he wrote 6 weeks ago, and that paragraph, one paragraph is key here. And he writes about the whole influence and the money that went to, that many people believe went to Biden and the whole thing. And he says, this has led to speculation that the scam I've been predicting for a couple of years is imminent. The Justice Department could soon give Hunter a sweetheart plea deal in which he would admit guilt to the undeniable minor tax charge or two, plus perhaps a false statement on a required federal firearms form concealing his drug abuse. Swept under the rug would be the part of the investigation that really matters: the gross monetization of Joe Biden's political influence and what foreign adversaries like China believed they were buying. And so this is where Andrew McCarthy is. I think we've talked about it. You could see this happening. These charges, nobody was denying these charges. Hunter himself, through his lawyers, he wasn't denying the charges that were laid down yesterday. The big problem here is now getting to the investigation on the president. And Andrew McCarthy is saying what they're going to try and do here is, all right, you're going to wrap it up here, try and put a bow around it, and nothing else happens on anything related to Joe Biden. If the GOP is doing their job, then this will not stop. Now, the question is, where's the DOJ? Where's the FBI on all this? What's going on with the cases with all of the whistleblowers? What's going on with the IG at the FBI? Is he even involved, or has he been involved to this point? What's going on with those cases? We can't allow those to disappear, and hopefully the GOP will stay on it. I suspect they will.
Reading from Turley yesterday, this is a relatively minor case, so it can be handled relatively quickly, but that's going to be really the controversy here. For critics, this is going to reinforce the view of the two-tier system. You know, the majority of Americans polled believe that the indictment of Donald Trump was politically motivated and constitute election interference. That shows you the level of distrust that the public has with the Department of Justice. This is not going to help. You know, for the average citizen, when it came to Trump, they rolled out a B-52, and this is going to look like a crop duster that, you know, you have the son of the president who's at the center of one of the greatest influence peddling scandals in American history. And that's saying a lot in Washington, D.C., and he's going to walk away with a couple of misdemeanors and a gun charge that they will likely get rid of. That's not going to sit well, and I think there's going to raise a couple of questions for folks on the Hill. One is, was the U.S. Attorney of Delaware given full authority to investigate the influence peddling aspects of the Hunter Biden's work? He was getting millions of dollars that he should have been paying taxes on, but that's the way he raised the money. It's who it came from. That's the most damaging for the Biden family. There's going to be another aspect to this if this is indeed closed, and the Department of Justice is going to have less of an ability to refuse material to Congress because they will not have an ongoing criminal investigation involving Hunter Biden. But the whole point is, that's the thing. The federal government said, well, we're still investigating, and the Biden people are saying it's closed. Everything here, there isn't one thing that I saw yesterday that didn't give you the perception, at the minimum, that the Justice Department and the federal government is saying in your face, we're gloating about the fact that there's a two-tier system of justice in America.
No, this is right out of the Merrick Garland playbook.
Yeah.
This is the arrogance that runs through this administration and throughout the Department of Justice now.
And the thing is, I played the CBS and the MSNBC audio cut to show you that everybody knows it.
Right.
Everybody
they're all
knows
going,
it.
But what about the whole laptop thing? What about the other stuff? What about the big stuff? What about the real concern of a president, a sitting president, who is possibly compromised at this moment?
We've always said, and we said it from the very beginning, this isn't about Hunter Biden.
Nope.
It's about Joe Biden. It's about influence peddling and the tens of millions of dollars that went to the Biden family. Comer said it's not going away. But again, I believe so much of this is political. And, you know, when you have people, look, Andrew McCarthy is not a conspiracy theorist. There's no way you can look at somebody like Andrew McCarthy. No. He's basically somebody who looks at the law. When he comes out and says, you know, his headline. I don't have it here at the moment, but the headline, the
intentionally provocative Hunter Biden plea deal.
And I looked at it more. This is in your face. This is basically this is the Justice Department telling you, to hell with you, America.
Yep.
We're gonna throw this in your face. We're gonna prove to you that this is a two-tier justice system. To hell with you, to hell with justice, to hell with the law.
And let this be a reminder that if you show up to the school board meeting for your children, we'll have the FBI in the parking lot taking down your license plate number. Yeah. We'll deem you a terrorist. Yeah. And if something happens with one of our family members, slap on the wrist, there's no jail time.
But I do believe it goes back, and McCarthy even said it. He's somebody who's never been a conspiracy theorist, but the perception is just so incredibly great that, look, we're going to prove to you there's a two-tier system of justice. Yeah. That means you'll vote Trump in, you'll lose, we win, we keep doing exactly what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that is the message that is sent yesterday, because no one evades taxes on $3 million and then admits it publicly.
And gets a slap on the wrist.
And then, commits perjury on a gun application, gets the gun, uses it irresponsibly, as we know, you combine those two, everybody gets jail time for that.
Yeah.
Unless you're politically connected.
Yep. Yeah, you're going to prison for that.
Yep. And everybody knows it. There isn't a Democrat that doesn't know it out there, which is why, again, I played the CBS and then the MSNBC, even MSNBC. Why was nothing on the laptop? Because they even know it's not about Hunter Biden. It's about the money to the Biden family to influence, peddle the president of the United, or the former vice president, now president of the United States. He knows it. He's making it clear. No, they don't care about the laptop at all. They don't care about any of the things on there whatsoever. And so what the Justice Department took 5 years to come up with a plea deal. And why a plea deal?
Yeah. Why?
You're telling me
you had him dead to rights on all of it.
You had him dead to rights on tax evasion. Who gets a plea deal?
What does the government get out of him? I mean, he's not turning on anybody. He's not going to flip on anybody. There's nothing to flip. What are you doing? What are you getting out of him?
And why do you go to Wesley? Why do you go after Wesley Snipes? And I say that now. Wesley Snipes, remember, he was bragging about the fact that he didn't have to pay taxes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but still, he did the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
He evaded taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And the admission came from Biden when he paid the money to the IRS.
Right.
So that was the admission, and the gun charge in his book, as the New York Post writes, in his book.
Yep.
He talks about it.
Yep.
And so you have all the evidence you need. What took 5 years?
Right.
I mean, you're talking slam dunk cases. Why the plea deal?
Well, it is exactly the way Andrew McCarthy writes it. This is intentional. This is arrogance coming from the DOJ, and we're going to sweep the rest of it under the rug.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Every driver knows the cost of replacing tires is a major expense. What if you could save on tire costs without sacrificing performance or safety? Consider retreads, a sustainable, cost-effective way to rack up your miles. The lower price tag of retreads might make it feel like you're sacrificing performance, but many of the quality retreads available today have proven to perform comparable to new tires. Plus, dependable tire performance also has to do with choosing the right retreads for your application and adopting a tire maintenance routine. Determining the position in which your retreads will be placed and what application they'll be used in should be the first steps you take when purchasing tires, whether new or retreads. This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. How blatant was the message being sent that it's a two-tier system of justice? Here's ABC's Jonathan Karl yesterday.
He insisted. He said, as recently as last month, my son did nothing wrong. Well, now his own Justice Department has entered into a plea agreement where his son has pled guilty to 2 crimes, and has been charged with a third crime, a felony. So clearly his son did something wrong.
So everybody knows it.
Yep.
You know, and that's why I played CBS, MSNBC, ABC there, just to show you everybody knows the blunt message that this is a two-tier system of justice.
Yep. Came
out yesterday, and what happened is wrong. And again, the president has been lying again, as you know, we know he's pathological at it.
Right.
So it's where do we go from here now?
Yeah. No, this is the arrogance that lives in the Biden administration over and over again, and let this be an example to you. Don't you try and get away with anything. We'll come after you.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Friday Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Okay, I want to play this audio cut, and CNN ran this. This is Kevin McCarthy yesterday after the announcement came of the plea deal with Hunter Biden.
The Hunter Biden plea deal and your reaction?
My first reaction is it continues to show the two-tier system in America. If you are the president's leading political opponent, the DOJ tries to literally put you in jail and give you prison time. If you are the president's son, you get a sweetheart deal. Now, this does nothing to our investigation. It actually should enhance our investigations because the DOJ should not be able to withhold any information now, saying that because of pending investigation, they should be able to provide Chairman Comer with any information that he requires.
And the reason I played that was because that was actually caught live on CNN as they were covering it.
Yeah.
So CNN had that.
Yeah.
We played from MSNBC, CBS. You know, you can't hide this, and it is so blunt. Like I said, I've covered politics for a long time. In the 80s, the 90s. And now
to be clear, the 1980s.
The 1980s, right. Through 4 decades, I have covered politics. I've just never seen anything like yesterday. You know, I've just never seen it. You know, I mean, and you take, encapsulate everything here with the Justice Department and everything that we have seen, even going back to the first, you know, the Hunter Biden laptop and the censoring, and then just everything over the last couple of years leading to this with the Justice Department. And it was almost an exclamation mark, in my opinion, that I saw yesterday, which was just like, to hell with you, America.
Well,
I've never seen something that has been so in your face to basically say, America, deal with it. It's a two-tier justice system.
Yeah.
If you're friends of the president, if you're friends of the Democrats, you get off. If you have a conservative point of view, you know, we talk about the FBI agent just recently testifying about having to sit in one of the reasons that he became a whistleblower is because he just said, I can't sit out in the parking lot of a school and take, as an FBI agent, and take license plate numbers of parents that are complaining about critical race theory and the radical transgender activist movement.
Right.
I mean, you take all of that and you encapsulate everything that we have seen here. And then yesterday, it was, I mean, exclamation mark after exclamation mark over and over again. To hell with you. This is in your face. We want you to know this is a two-tier justice system. Go to hell if you don't like it.
This is a high school football game where the team that's leading 98-0 just scored again and spiked the ball.
Oh, yeah. And they've been cheating the whole game.
Right.
that one in there, too.
Right, yeah, no, and the officials have been shutting down the other team for no reason.
Yeah, the officials have been bribed.
That's actually... Yes, and also Russiagate. They would be also the enforcement on... So the entire other team has been shut down for no reason. Offsides when they weren't even on the field.
Reading here from the New York Post editorial yesterday, what has taken so long? How does it take 5 years to come up with this? As we learned long ago, the 5-year Hunter Biden investigation is wrapping up in a plea deal over charges the Justice Department just couldn't avoid bringing. Why? Because the public record established Hunter's guilt on them a long time ago. It reeks because if this were truly all Hunter is guilty of, it would not have taken this long or be shrouded in so much secrecy. Hunter basically admitted guilt on the tax avoidance counts years ago when he, or rather a wealthy friend, paid the back taxes.
Yeah.
And he effectively confessed to the gun charge in his autobiography, writing up his vast drug use at the very time he applied for a gun license without mentioning it. And we know the Secret Service retrieved the gun after he tossed it into a public trash bin. Hang on a second here. Let me. I got to rip this page off. But other obvious and apparent crimes did not get charged. He never registered as a foreign agent, even as his laptop and other evidence shows he was lobbying. We know from his lawyer, though, the laptop never came up.
Right.
They just ignored it.
Yeah.
And, you know, some of the information that was been being reported here over the last couple of weeks, I can't remember who did it, that said that, you know, for example, the whole bribe allegations that the Weiss didn't even know about it. That they didn't even know about any of these things until Comer brought it to their attention. He goes, but other obvious and apparent crimes didn't get charged. He never registered as a foreign agent, and they talk about the fact of how many months in prison Manafort got for that.
Right.
But he never registered as a foreign agent, even as his laptop and other evidence shows he was lobbying. He was blatantly peddling influence, the only possible explanation for the millions he scored in Ukraine and China in his last name. Nor do prosecutors seem to have followed up on the clear indications of money laundering, money moved through a vast network of accounts to other members of the family, or even sex trafficking. Again, the laptop shows ample payments for hookers of all kinds. Oh. I don't know how they get to the sex trafficking on that one, though. That's the one thing I don't know.
Yeah.
How is that federal? They don't explain it. Let me just see here. I want to just move through very quickly and get to it. I printed it up and it didn't print all the pages here. Okay, so hang on here. Oh no, I got to see. I have to see almost a naked Hunter Biden as I move through this here.
Yeah, we don't want that.
On the money laundering, especially, we know the IRS, apparently at the Justice Department direction, asked the expert team that had been digging into Hunter's vast web of accounts. Were they getting too close? How could their replacements have possibly finished the work in bare weeks so prosecutors could, in good conscience, opt against charges? What of the whistleblower allegations of political interference in the case and the retaliation against whistleblowers? David Weiss, the Delaware U.S. attorney, claims the investigation is ongoing, but that sounds like a dodge to keep House Republicans off his back. Hunter's lawyer and friends are treating this as the end of the story. And what an end it is. Hunter gets off easy, even by the low standards set by the charges. Misdemeanors for taxes, the only felony he could have faced over a gun, is waived as long as Hunter straightens up and flies right. Again, this investigation began back in 2018, and we know the Fed soon had enough evidence to convict on the charges finally brought, perhaps before and surely soon after the 2020 election. Are we supposed to believe that they held off so long because they were looking into more consequential crimes, as deploying a top IRS team indicates, only to suddenly decide after firing that team that they couldn't prove anything else? Despite the obviously impropriety of the Justice Department investigating the president's son, and as that president repeatedly and loudly publicly declared his son innocent, Attorney General Merrick Garland refused to name an independent counsel to take the case. If a special prosecutor of clear integrity had offered this plea deal now, it'd stink, but it might be something the public could swallow. But as things stand, the only possible conclusion is that justice is corrupt. Oh, the other thing, too, that was brought up. Remember, Biden's lawyers came out last week, the week before, and said if he faces the gun charge, that they're going to use the Second Amendment to defend him on it, and it will embarrass the president big time.
Yeah.
Because what he's going to try to do is he's going to try to go to the Supreme Court and state that you shouldn't be banned from having a gun if you're a drug addict. And so the president's son would be going against everything that they claim Biden stands for by defending the Second Amendment, is what Hunter Biden's lawyers would be doing.
Right.
And saying, whether legally, I don't know how they would rule, on it. You just don't know in any particular case. Mm-hmm. But the fact is, politically, that would look horrible on the liberal side for the president.
Well, I mean, and what would happen after that? Is Hunter Biden going to go out? Is he going to speak at the NRA meeting? Are his lawyers going to come out and say, this is a victory for all free people who practice their Second Amendment rights every day? It's not going to happen. Because hooker and crack. That's all I got to say.
Well, like I said, it was a fascinating day in American politics. Yesterday, because I've never, maybe there was a time in Hoover's FBI where the bias or the corruption was communicated, but I've just never seen anything in my life covering politics. I've never seen anything like the message that was sent by the Justice Department yesterday, especially with the focus on a two-tier justice system and the fact of the polling that came out yesterday that shows the majority of Americans already are looking are looking at this going, there's a two-tier system of justice here,
right?
Or it sure seems like it.
And they
put their stamp on it yesterday.
So many people that believe that the cases against Trump are election interference.
Yeah,
if you look at where the landscape is right now, where the sentiment is of the American people, and then for this to come out the way it did on Tuesday, it was like, and don't you forget it. You're damn right it's a two-tier system. Any more questions? Oh, sorry, we're not taking questions. I mean, this is Joe Biden, everybody. This is the arrogance we've been talking about for years, long before he ever became an incompetent president. And it runs throughout his administration and through the halls at the DOJ led by Merrick Garland. And if you have any questions, you're not paying attention.
Yeah, so you see everything in the polling that comes out, and we mentioned the 83% of registered voters in the Harvard-Harris poll. This is not a conservative poll, not a Republican pollster at all.
Right.
That came out. So 83% believe the FBI, should give, the bribe document to the, to Comer, which is you think about it, you don't get 83% for anything on any polls out there.
No. But
and so when you see, and as I've always stated, it's going to be really interesting politically, because I said this yesterday, and I've said this before, that there's two things that the American public actually cares about. And one is when politicians don't pay their taxes or avoid taxes or evade taxes. And the other one is influence peddling. Well, now you've got a combination of both. Hunter Biden, should be charged with the felony of tax evasion and is not. And they're using the closing. The Democrats will use the closing in the Biden administration, the closing of this to still say, well, we're not going to cooperate with the bribe scandal at all.
Right.
We're still not going to cooperate.
Right.
We're not going to do anything. So you have a double whammy.
Well, and I would add to it the two-tiered system. People don't like whether it's somebody who's rich or famous, and they get a slap on the wrist for something that, the everyday person is going to go to jail for, that kind of thing. But this is taking that to a whole new level.
Yeah.
And I think it has the potential. I hope it has the leverage to make the bribe thing even louder. I hope that is what will happen here when people are greatly concerned as to whether or not the current president is compromised. Because this is a clear, as Andrew McCarthy points it out and has a number of times, this is sweeping it under the rug, and don't you dare open the door again. Thank goodness the GOP is in control of the House. I hope they do their job. I really do.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Thanks so much for being here. Wesley Snipes was sentenced to 3 years in prison. He didn't file income taxes. He was fined $5 million, 3 years. And remember, though, when you look at why, because that's a question, why did Hunter Biden evade taxes? That question was not asked.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. Welcome. Thank you for being here. If you'd like to get in, 866-90-RED-EYE. So, yeah, amazing day yesterday. Not a good day, but an amazing day yesterday. Something I hadn't seen before. And like I said, when you look at and encapsulate everything that's happened over the last couple of years, especially with the Department of Justice, and you look at it, it really was the exclamation mark of in your face.
Yep.
Hey, America, there's a two-tier justice system. We'll be blunt about it. Mm-hmm. We'll be as honest about it as we possibly can. Just deal with it.
Yep.
And when you and I was talking about, Wesley Snipes, and, when he didn't file taxes for 4 years, I think.
Yeah, I think it was something like that. Yeah.
Why did he do it, though? What was his intent? I mean, what's the motive? We talk about what the motive of a crime is. What was his motive?
Right.
He was under the belief, remember, he got together with a couple of people who were you don't have to pay your income tax mindset that existed out there. I remember, you don't hear that as much anymore.
No, we heard it a lot during that time.
Yes. And, that's the old thing that, there's voluntary and, basically enforcement. Or the first step of enforcement is voluntary in paying your taxes, which means you voluntarily pay them.
Yes.
And that has been taken by many people, including Wesley Snipes. Well, I don't have to pay my taxes. Right. It's unconstitutional to do so.
Right.
He found out differently.
Yeah.
And so, but was his purpose, was there a criminal purpose behind not paying the taxes? What he did was criminal.
Right. Was there a greater crime he was trying to conceal?
Right. Was there a greater crime he was trying to conceal at that point?
Right. Like he got the money illegally. There was another crime that led to him receiving that money, earning that money. And that would be that's what applies here. Okay. You talk about not reporting it. Then how did it get there? Is the question.
Right. And remember, when we sign our taxes, what does it say when you sign?
You're responsible.
And that you acknowledge that everything here is true.
Yeah.
Under the threat of fraud. IRS fraud.
Right.
So the question would be in the IRS, okay, you made a mistake there. Okay, mistakes are one thing. Yeah. You made a mistake. You put something on line 16 that should have been on line 15, and it came out wrong.
I think that's happened to both of us.
Yes. Yeah.
The letter from the IRS that I got.
Oh, but not in my favor.
I don't sweat like that in August when I'm out working in the lawn in Texas. I mean, dripping sweat as I'm opening that letter. What do you mean? By the way, that's the last time somebody else did my taxes. True story.
That was
His name was Wesley Snipes. He said he was a CPA.
I wasn't living in my house. This goes back over probably 17, 18 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And there I was. I came home from work one night. I was doing the afternoon show, so I was done by 6.
Yeah.
At our flagship WBAP. So I got home, probably it was, 6:30, whatever. And
yeah.
I go to my my mailbox, and you had the group mailboxes. It's a townhouse complex.
Oh, yeah.
So I went in there, and there's this thick letter from the IRS.
Yeah. No, I remember. Yeah.
And so I don't even close my mailbox. You're ripping that open as you're sitting with all your other mail in your hand, ripping it open, you're looking at it. And I owed it was $6,500.
Mm.
Well, I mean, the panic was just including I think it was a $5,000 fine.
Yeah. No, it's when you, and when you open it, you know how back in the day when we were first using copiers and we thought it was some of the best technology ever, and then that warm feel of the paper, and then the smell of the ink and all of that, and oh man, this is great. The IRS letter smelled like bloated government.
Well, I couldn't figure out what in the world was going on. I mean, the panic was everything. My world stopped.
No, I was about to call my preacher.
And by the next morning, if you looked at my living room, it looked like a tornado hit my living room.
Mm-hmm.
There were piles of paper. There was stuff all over the place. And it took me a while.
Yeah.
And, I probably, this is like 6:30, and probably by 11 o'clock, 11:30, midnight, finally figured out, I just put something on the wrong line.
Mm-hmm.
I've paid all my taxes. I put something on the wrong. I don't know that, and I don't know the fine.
They had already aligned. My situation was similar, but they had already acknowledged, we know that this is what you did, and if you just do this and also send the check up for what you owe additional, I don't know, it's a few $100, whatever it was, then, that, and you have to do it within a certain period. I mean, I was on the phone with them, and they were pretty nice about it. And after that, I fired my CPA and told him to send the boxes of all my documents to my University of Pennsylvania office.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're still there.
Chinatown?
I think.
When Trump said that yesterday, I'm like, what's he talking about? Chinatown?
What?
It's like, University of Pennsylvania because of all the Chinese money.
Yeah.
But he said it in such a subtle way to Brett Baer, you were just like, what's that reference to, Chinatown?
Right, because it could be a number of references.
And so the next, it didn't matter that I had resolved it, knew I was okay.
Yeah.
I hadn't resolved it with the IRS yet. And I was tossing and turning the whole night, and finally woke up the next morning and called the IRS. And, very nice, woman who I got her name, her ID number, her badge number, whatever. I mean, I got every piece of information. Within 30 seconds, she said, you put it on the wrong line. It's no big deal here. It's all resolved. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And I said, but it says here, I need all your information of who you are and everything else. But it says here, I said, how long, she said, in about 5 or 6 weeks, you'll get the official notification that everything is cool and that the mistake has been recognized.
Right.
And I said, but it says here, if I don't respond in 30 days in writing, then I acknowledge I owe the money.
Yeah.
And she said, don't worry about that at all. And I go, I have to worry about that. and so I said, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm sending you, give me your address. I'm sending everything to you and making copies of it. Mm-hmm. So I sent everything to her, acknowledging everything directly to her, and again, registered mail to do that. And then I sent the exact same package to the IRS in general, explaining to them everything that was going on.
Yeah.
And so after I did that, a couple of days later, I talked to an IRS attorney who said, oh, no, you didn't have to do all that. I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, that whole thing that you owe it if you don't acknowledge it within 30 days is BS. You don't owe the IRS anything that you don't owe them.
Yeah, I heard you don't even have to pay your taxes. It's voluntary.
No, let's be very, very careful here. You don't owe them anything that you don't owe them. If you make a mistake,
okay, Donald Rumsfeld. We don't owe what we don't. There are O's and there are O's we know. There are.
You don't owe what you don't owe.
What you don't owe.
Even if you know that you don't owe.
If you know you owe, then you
right. Yeah. and so but it didn't matter. I probably would have done it anyway.
Yeah.
Just to cover myself, and then everything was great in that, and probably that's my reaction and your reaction was probably 99% of Americans to sit there and know you made $3 million.
Yeah. Right.
Well, at least $3 million, as Hunter Biden did, and just not put that on your taxes.
Well,
I mean, when you're doing that, I would never do that because I'm thinking to myself, that could be 5 years in jail. That could be 5, 6, 7 years in jail. I would never do that. I mean, whatever I have to do, number one, I'm never going to get myself in that position. But you ask yourself, again, the IRS looks at it, what was our motivation? Our motivation was a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Wesley Snipes' motivation was, I don't believe that it's constitutional that I pay taxes.
Right.
Now, was he not paying his taxes to hide the money so you couldn't figure out that there was money laundering and influence peddling going on? Well, that seems to be a logical conclusion that you could come to based on what we know now.
Right.
The fact that Hunter Biden's lawyer said they never asked anything about the laptop.
Right.
Nothing about it.
Right.
Well, that's where the whole influence peddling came from, was the laptop.
I mean, that was such a tell, him saying that.
Right. And so what he's saying is that the Justice Department did not look at possible criminal motivation to evade the taxes, which is a completely different ballgame.
Right,
that if I'm a federal judge and I'm looking at this and say, well, wait a minute, why do you believe that he did all of this? Why did you? Because this would be a question I would ask. This would be a logical question. Why did you evade your taxes? If we're going to make a plea deal, you need to tell me why you evaded your taxes.
Yeah. Right.
Why did you evade it?
Right.
So I don't have to pay income tax. Well, if the prosecution came out and said, well, wait a minute. No, you didn't. You did it to hide the influence peddling portion of it.
Right.
And the tens of millions that went to your family. That would have been a key if you put that on your taxes. Well, where did this income come from? Well, it came from Ukraine or it came from China. That sets in motion the entire influence peddling.
Yeah, in fact, I think it's BIP Incorporated, Biden Influence Peddling Incorporated is the acronym.
But that's why it's important to know. That's why, again, motive, intent is a part of most prosecutions. Why did you do it? What was the purpose? What was the intent to do it? I mean, that's in murder. Well, in homicide. What was self-defense? Okay, that's different than manslaughter.
Right.
Which is different than premeditated first degree.
Right.
And what is it all based on? Behavior, but also intent of that behavior. The result is the exact same thing. Somebody is dead, but the intent and motivation behind it counts in a court of law. Well, that holds in all crimes that are committed out there. What is your motivation to do so? You take out, by not looking at the laptop, as the lawyer said, you take out the criminal motivation behind it, the possible criminal motivation behind it, that prosecutors absolutely would use in a case like this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, and because what you're looking for, too, I would think, is if there's this amount of money here, could there be money elsewhere? Are they looking for any money that could have been either kept in cash, or which would be a lot of cash, I don't know where you would keep that, maybe in a garage inside of a Corvette. I don't know. It's none of my business. But what about Bitcoin, these types of things? My point is that you would follow through with the investigation going, well, where did this money come from? Because what the IRS part of what the taxes part should also, if you're doing it thorough, you should shut the door on it being a pattern of behavior. So you say, okay, this is the money he avoided paying taxes on. All right, but is there more? Is there a pattern of this behavior somewhere? Could we find other money that he, I don't know, offshore, whatever it is?
Here's the other thing too. Once you find out a month ago, a couple of weeks ago, you fire the people, then you find out that the Department of Justice, the FBI, has this $5 million. Remember, not the $3 million that he didn't report, but another $5 million in a bribe. Mm-hmm. You don't continue the investigation on that.
Exactly. Now, you're looking for a pattern of this.
Now, and so is that what Weiss is looking at now? But if Weiss is looking at that now, you don't close this case because the case is about tax evasion. Well, if there's possible more tax evasion, well, then you don't do a plea deal on this and shut it down to a misdemeanor. So even,
I guess you could bring further tax evasion charges, but traditionally you wouldn't. You're right.
Well, no, you wouldn't because
you wouldn't close it because you're looking to make a huge deal.
Well, you usually make the case of, wait a minute, is there a pattern?
Right.
So all of a sudden you hear, well, the FBI has this thing that says that both of them got another $5 million. Well, then we've waited 5 years and nothing has changed. Well, now we're being told that the FBI is still investigating whether $5 million more went to Hunter Biden at this point. Well, that makes it a total of $8 million. Mm-hmm. Well, we're further investigating it. Well, then why did you close that part of the case? Why are you willing to make a deal before you know whether there's a pattern of evading taxes?
Right.
So none of it makes sense.
No.
866-98-RED-I.
Leased owner-operators should be aware of 4 common revenue myths, lest you fall into the trap of mistaking revenue for profit. Myth 1, concentrate on increasing revenue because costs will take care of themselves. This is not true, as costs are fundamental to the profit equation and the area where owners exert the most control to improve. Myth 2, more revenue per mile is the answer to all problems. Though carrier pay packages differ in structure, revenue per mile really doesn't change much from company to company, but there can be a big difference in miles, overall gross revenue, reimbursements, and fees. Myth 3, all you have to do to be successful is run a lot of miles. In reality, revenue is only half of the profit equation. Costs are the other half. It's possible to generate a lot of revenue, yet spend $1.10 to make every dollar. Myth 4, you can tell how well you're doing by the size of your settlement check. The settlement check is only a part of the success picture. Miles driven, loads hauled, conditions, mechanical problems, time off, and especially costs all have to be considered. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Shell Rotella with advanced synthetic technology. For more information, go to overdriveonline.com to the Overdrive's Partners in Business section of the website for more detail on Business 101 and many other topics.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. More from the mainstream media. This is CBS News yesterday in their special report about Hunter Biden. Here we go.
I can tell you, having covered this for several years now, that this is likely to be a very controversial plea agreement, especially with Republicans on Capitol Hill. Over the last few years, not only in the House but in the Senate, their investigators have raised very serious questions about these business deals with Chinese nationals, as well as this Ukraine energy firm firm Burisma. And then more recently, we've had whistleblowers come forward. An IRS whistleblower spoke on the record with CBS News, as well as whistleblowers from the Justice Department have gone to Capitol Hill complaining that this investigation has been slow-walked and that standard investigative procedures have not been followed. So this may just be the beginning.
There you go. Catherine Herridge yesterday on CBS, and that's why we've played, CBS, ABC, CNN, MSNBC. They all know.
Yeah, that's the problem that the Biden administration has here, is that the mainstream media is on this story and everybody's scratching their heads after yesterday.
Call in and get a word in edgewise. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Even before yesterday, though, the polling has showed America knows what's going on. I had a friend of mine yesterday send me a meme that just was doing. The mainstream media hasn't talked about this, saying concerning Biden, but they've spent hundreds of minutes on Trump. And I wrote back to him, and I sent him the 83% polling. I go, it doesn't matter anymore, really, whether the mainstream media carries it or not. People don't get their news from the mainstream media anymore.
Right.
Majority of people get it by going online. People now search for the news. It's not all people, but when you see over the last couple of days of polling that is out on the whole FBI and the document thing, the bribe document, 83% of Americans believe the FBI should give it to Comer, including 74% of Democrats that were polled, not by a conservative polling place, but by Harvard-Harris polling. And so you look at it, it's like, okay, they know. The majority of Americans look and say, okay, yeah, the charges against Trump are election interference. I mean, that's huge. That's the majority of people. Not a plurality, but a majority. And that's early on here. So the questions, because of people realize it. People understand how the government and the Justice Department and the FBI were part of the, wanting to censor and hide what was going on with the Hunter Biden laptop story in 2020. They know it. And they know it's wrong. Americans don't believe in censoring. I understand that the Democratic Party on the federal level, they don't care. They want power however they can get it. And so they don't. Some of their voters don't. But I think a significant portion does care about it. And when it comes to things like bribery, influence peddling, I think those things are still important to Americans. And the evasion of taxes.
Yep.
That's the one thing that I think the Democrats may not be looking at, and that's Americans looking at the elite getting away with something that they could never, ever get away from, and that is tax evasion. Americans know if they don't file their taxes, there's a chance of them going to jail.
Yeah, right.
Americans absolutely know that if they attempt to hide and evade from the federal government $3 million in income so they don't have to pay taxes on that, most Americans, probably 99.9% of Americans, would expect they're going to jail.
Yeah. I mean, after I got that letter, and I did nothing before I remedied that situation, which included, and you mentioned sending yours registered mail. I sent mine certified mail as well. And until that check cleared, which is to say that I knew everything had I was kosher. I was driving around like Henry Hill. And I swear there was a copter.
The helicopter, looking for the helicopter.
Over me every moment. I had the sauce going. I had to take her to the airport. I had to come back. I had to pick up Louie. And then, but I mean, it was that kind of feeling going, man, I hope I got this right. Because I thought, if there's a mistake here, right, after you get the letter and say, no, well, here's the mistake that was made in the preparation of your taxes. Okay, so do this, and we're good. And I thought, but if you don't do that correctly, if you make a mistake there in correcting the first mistake, that's going to look like tax evasion. That was my worst fear. Oh, well, this guy's making multiple mistakes. Nobody makes multiple mistakes. Yeah, I do. I do. But, I mean, that was my fear. I thought to myself, I've got to get that right. Every bit of that process has to be right. And that's how Americans feel about it.
And so when Americans look at it, because I had the same thing as we mentioned last half hour, same thing happened to me. Complete and total panic. I don't want any type of miscommunication,
right?
Because I understand the power of the IRS.
Right.
We understand the power granted to certain people in the IRS, which we believe goes way too far.
I can deal with that separately.
Right. I mean, that's separately, but that doesn't come into consideration when you're actually trying to ensure that you have no legal liability whatsoever.
Well, in fact, they asked me when I was on the phone with them, what do you do for a living? I said, I spend all night trying to get rid of you guys. Maybe I didn't phrase it exactly that way.
You probably didn't.
Probably.
Your memory may be going a little bit.
Maybe.
And so most Americans think that way. And so when you see that, okay, you don't forget about $3 million in income.
Right.
Not something you forget about.
No.
And so that doesn't appear on there. You sign your taxes, and then you would, in all intents and purposes, admit it by paying what you owe later on, hoping not to get. Because when his friend came up and gave him the loan to pay, what was it, $2 million in fines and everything else.
Yeah.
When his friend gave him the loan to do that, I think even Andrew McCarthy wrote on it. He goes, okay, yeah, that's a ploy, to get the IRS not to be as, the Department of Justice not to be as hard on him. He said, but that doesn't work after the fact.
Right.
Years after the fact when you don't pay, and all of a sudden you throw the money at it, that can actually be viewed as another way. Okay, you're trying to get a lighter sentence from something that was premeditated. That was premeditated not to do it, but as we stated last hour, what was the intent of doing it? What was the motivation in doing it? Well, if the investigation, there's been a lot of things saying, well, the investigation wasn't looking at influence peddling. Well, you don't need to be looking at influence peddling. This goes back to what we said about the Mueller report. And we had said with the Mueller report that if you were the special counsel and you were told, all right, the allegation is Trump colluded with the Russians to hack the election. We have no evidence. But you're the special counsel and you need to go at it, but we can't find any evidence. But that's the allegation. And, because Trump said, because Trump fired the FBI director, this justifies looking into it, even though we can't tell you what specific crime there is. It's a generality. Then you need to look at this. You and I said, well, what we do as investigators, the first thing we would have done at that point is said, okay, where's the strongest evidence? Because you're going in completely not knowing anything, right?
Yep.
I'm starting from day one. I'm going to go after I've been told my goal is to go after Trump to see if he colluded with the Russians. All right, where might be the strongest evidence that Trump colluded with the Russians? Oh, wait a minute. I'm a special prosecutor. The FBI got a secret warrant to spy on the Trump campaign. Wow. There must be a treasure trove of evidence there to indict Trump. Well, actually, there wasn't. What there would have led Mueller down is the road to the FBI for a significant period of time, including under his watch, not abiding by FISA rules and regulations, and in that case, committing fraud in order to set the Trump campaign up. And all of that leads to the truth, which was the Hillary campaign. Oh, by the way, that's out there now. Talking to some people over the weekend, they all knew. They all knew that Hillary set Trump up.
Yeah.
You know, we had said for the longest time when we would tell people that, they're going, what are you? Now it's well known. Now it's completely well known. But he didn't go down that path because of that. Well, with Hunter Biden, you know, because that's the whole thing. Well, maybe the investigators weren't told to look at improper influence peddling or money laundering. Well, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You don't need to go there in order to go down that path. All you need to know is a couple of weeks ago, you found out the FBI is still investigating. It's an open investigation, they claim, into Hunter Biden taking a bribe.
Yeah.
The investigation's still going on. Well, what was the bribe? $5 million. Well, that doesn't seem like that's $3 million. You don't need to be worried at that point of the FBI about influence peddling, about being a foreign agent and not registering, about money laundering. You don't need to look at anything. All you're looking at is tax evasion.
Yep.
Well, $3 million here, $5 million there. Well, we can't make a deal with him because the FBI is investigating a $5 million.
We don't know how big this is.
Right, a $5 million bribe. We don't know how big this is. The last thing we can do as prosecutors is make a deal and then find out later on that he didn't report another $5 million in income because it was a bribe. And so they can't go either way on this. They can't sit there and say, we're still investigating what's, hold it. This plea deal, because I can see this coming from the Department of Justice. Hold it. $3 million deal is separate. We're still investigating, including the $5 million. Well, no, that's ridiculous, because why would you then make it a plea deal that you wouldn't make with anybody else?
Right.
When you're concerned that there might be a pattern of evading taxes now, including $5 million that might be a bribe.
Right.
But don't even have to look at the bribe. It's just $5 million, because if that's the authority you were giving to just look into him evading taxes and the gun charge, because that's what Republicans are saying, was Weiss limited in the scope of his investigation. Well, my point is, even if he was limited in the scope of the investigation, the $5 million, bribe or not, is still income.
Right. And that money, as we've stated from the beginning, it's all about that flow of money.
Yeah. Right.
And for the IRS purposes,
right.
That's the whole thing. How many SARS reports did they say?
I think there's 150.
So you look at all of this and you say, oh, my gosh, there is a clear pattern. We don't know where the money's coming from or why they're getting it. We just know they're not reporting it, and that all falls under that IRS charge.
Including, what was the motivation for him to not do it, which then can lead you somewhere else.
That can take you somewhere else.
Right.
But even if you're going to limit your scope, as you point out.
You still get there anyway.
You still get there. There's no way you can't. Yeah. It's kind of like we said about Mueller during the Russian hoax thing. If Mueller's doing his job, going back and talking about the very first days of the warrant, the FISA warrant, you have to go back and look at the justification for the FISA warrant. You have to go back to the very beginning on everything. It will take you somewhere else. And shutting this down the way they did, trying to wrap a bow around this whole thing yesterday, is absolutely ludicrous and maddening.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, one other thing the Republicans can blast the Democrats on from now on is the Democrats not going after the Justice Department for not enforcing gun laws.
Yeah, right.
You know, the Democrats claim that they care about, gun laws and irresponsible gun use. Well, you've got an absolutely clear example with Hunter Biden, and the Democrats will be quiet on it. Great opportunity for Republicans to say, you're hypocrites.
Yep. Oh, man, this opens the door.
Yep.
This really opens the door in terms of how the GOP can campaign.
Well, that's, rapper Kodak Black's lawyer said that.
Yeah.
Slammed the Department of Justice saying, oh, you can do this. You can lie on an application. You can commit fraud on a gun application and get the gun and use it irresponsibly and get away with it if you're the president's son.
Right.
And the Democrats don't complain about it and aren't saying, we need to enforce gun laws. Why? Because if you're a Democrat, you should be able to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So it's not just a two-tier system of justice. It's the specific things of gun crimes and evading your taxes.
Yeah. Yeah. Their arrogance may not pay off for them. Let's hope it doesn't.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So you were talking to me about, before we were talking about I saw in the New York Post, but apparently it was a Rolling Stone story, which was talking about a Canadian plane that was looking for the Titanic sub that said they had heard, clanking sounds like every 30 minutes, but they didn't give a time frame on it.
Yeah, according to the New York Times version of this, and some of this is, again, reporting from what the Rolling Stone broke a little while ago. Canadian surveillance aircraft looking for the missing Titan submersible and the 5 people on board in the North Atlantic has, quote, detected underwater noises in the search area, end quote, the U.S. Coast Guard said early Wednesday. All right, and so the other versions of this story are that they were some kind of knocking noise, and it was happening every 30 minutes. There's not a lot of other details that they're sharing at the moment, and we're kind of following this, and that would be, okay. That was happening for a time, and then they went back a few hours later and detected those noises again. But they don't really give us a time frame as to how late these noises have been heard.
Right. Are they being heard now, or was that yesterday? Did they end? And it's frustrating.
Well,
actually trying to figure out what they mean in the story.
Right. It's and those are the issues you often run into in a story like this, because it is a developing story. But when you basically put it all together, that would obviously give hope to being able to find these individuals alive. And that's, again, they don't know what the source of the noises is. They can't tell. It's, so, again, we'll be following this throughout the morning if there's any other breaking news on this. And also, part of the story that developed yesterday had to do with a lawsuit from a former employee of OceanGate, and there was an employee there who was concerned about the glass, the viewport glass. Mm-hmm. This is a 7-inch thick glass that is used on this submersible. And this former employee issued these concerns that the makers of the glass would not certify it below 1,300 meters, which is roughly 4,265 feet, I think. And that was great concern, basically sounding the bells to say that if that's the case, then there should be great concern as to whether this submersible should be going below that. And so that came out yesterday. The employee was fired for, according to the company, was fired for talking about proprietary issues or proprietary matters, not issues, but matters. The person, this is David Lockridge, is the person named in the lawsuit. He's OceanGate's former director of marine operations. And he alleged in August of 2018 court filings that he was wrongfully terminated after raising concerns about the company's refusal to conduct critical, non-destructive testing of the experimental design of the Titan. And this is, of course, the submersible that went missing on Sunday. It's, again, and part of that concern is outlined in the lawsuit and these legal papers, is that glass is not in the viewport, is not rated below 1,300 meters.
That would be a problem.
Yes, because we're talking about 2.5 times that depth.
Yeah.
For to go view the Titanic, which is what it's designed to do, take tourists down to that depth, which is about 12,500 feet. So
that's over 2 miles.
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about.
I was looking at the water pressure. Looking at the figures of what the water pressure would be at that depth the other day, and it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's just there's just no way out. There's no way out of that.
Right.
We were comparing to a pressurized airplane. If you're at 36,000 feet and, you get a little, blip in the outer shell and it starts depressurizing and the masks jump down, the plane heads down, to 10,000 feet, and you've got enough oxygen to survive at that point. That's not the case with the pressurization here. It's so incredibly massive that any type of crack, whatever, and you're done.
Yeah. There's also something that's been kind of going back and forth on social media, too, and also in the media, that there is a team, it's a UK-based company, that has a team, and they have an ROV. The team from the UK is named Magellan. They have an ROV rated for 6,000 meters, which is loaded on a plane and ready and waiting to help. Now, they put that statement out there, the company that owns that, and they say that the U.S. Coast Guard has not given them a response. The Boston Coast Guard has not responded to questions about the depth grading of the ROVs currently used in the search efforts or the proposal to use the UK company's products. I would guess, and I'm this is just a guess, that if it's a privately owned submersible, it's not the British Navy that is offering this help,
right.
then the Coast Guard can't confirm or may not want to put those individuals in danger because they don't know about the worthiness of that unit that they have, and to make a situation worse, if you put a submersible in there and the search submersible then that someone else came in with that does not belong to or is not under the approval of the U.S. Coast Guard, to begin with, would cause, if they lost that one, that would obviously be tragedy upon tragedy. So I'm guessing that's the situation they're running into with that part of it.
I would like to, because yesterday was spent so much on the Hunter Biden stuff, trying to figure out what's going on and all the legalities behind it. And I didn't see any articles, but it would be interesting to see, because they said, the search has been, started, a couple days ago.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What do you do in a search like this? How do you start the search?
Right.
What do you do immediately? Now, we know they have those surveillance planes that can pick up stuff, but are you sending, that would be my question, are they sending, as the U.S. government, Coast Guard, whatever, do they have many subs that can go down to that depth, and have they been down there already?
Right, yeah. It's and more on that viewport issue that came as a result of, that surfaced yesterday as a result of the lawsuit. This is from the Boston Herald. Lockridge reported, and this is the former employee there of OceanGate. Lockridge reported he discovered information that the viewport, the large 7-inch acrylic, that's 7 inches thick, by the way, acrylic viewing window at the front of the sub was only built to a certified pressure of 1,300 meters, 4,265 feet, even though the Ocean Exploration Company intended to take passengers down to depths of 4,000 meters, 13,123 feet, according to the filing. Quote, the viewport manufacturer would only certify to a depth of 1,300 meters due to the experimental design of the viewport, end quote. And that quote is from the court papers, and that I just read is from the Boston Herald. So, again, we'd have to get into that, and there would have to be, you'd have to look into that claim and where's the manufacturer of that material, that acrylic that is used here.
And you would ask us when they sold it to the group, was that listed on there? I mean, do you know the parameter? Was there fraud committed?
Well, if you're going to use selling this,
right,
you're selling the safety aspect to the people who are paying $250,000 per seat,
and that would be the biggest aspect when I'm going down to 13,000 feet is the safety. That's the only thing I'm concerned is the safety aspect.
Yes, is it worthy of this depth?
Right,
and that would have to be number one, and also, what testing did you go through? Repeated testing in order to repeat the effects over and over and over again, because you also talk about the cumulative effect of the pressure on that craft.
Here's a question. I'm going to assume, with the pressure of because of the pressures put on an airplane, you get metal fatigue.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to have.
Yep.
There has to be fatigue on a submarine if you're down to 13,000 feet.
Yeah.
And I just wonder how quickly that fatigue sets in.
Because of the experimental design of that glass, as pointed out by the court papers, if that is accurate and true, and the or acrylic, and also the design of the craft itself, the other elements of the craft, and that would have to be, again, safety is paramount. That would have to be number one, and it would also have to be part of the disclosure and the certification of that glass and all of that. I don't know what kind of waiver you sign. I'm assuming it's very extensive in the age of space tourism and now ocean tourism, deep, deep, deep ocean tourism, then there are going to be some risks that you're going to take by being a passenger, someone who is not trained to be there. You're there as a tourist. That's a given. However, how much was in the disclosure of the certification, and was anything falsified? Those things would be definitely looked into. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at that lawsuit too, about where authorities took that from there, what they took from that, and what investigation was done from that. But right now, we're into Wednesday morning.
24 hours?
You've got roughly 24 hours.
Yeah.
And by the way, that also does not necessarily account for the oxygen that would be used by individuals who don't have dive experience. Mm-hmm. They would, in a stressful situation, you are going to use more. And if there is any training, and I'm guessing there is at least a little bit of training, I don't know that training, how much of that training applies here, but you just have to, time is of the essence, and you're looking at 24 hours at the most in terms of oxygen supply left on the Titan.
$250,000, huh?
Yeah.
Is the cost.
Yeah.
I don't know. I stay away from, I think when it comes to tourism, I stay away from casinos and mini subs.
Yeah. Casinos, I'm on board. Mini subs.
Yeah, I mean, it's just.
Or space exploration. Look, I would be out of my Vulcan mind if I could look through a window and see the entire Earth in that window. I cannot imagine. All I'm saying is that suit's going to need a dry cleaning when I get back, because, man, I'm going to be overjoyed in that moment.
Yeah.
Now you talk about the risk of getting there. And even if you have the money, there's still so much great risk involved in getting there. And this is no exception to that. It's not space travel, but we know what happens at that depth and what the issues are. But these are individuals who are very adventurous
and rich
by nature and do have that money to spend on it. And let's hope and pray that they're okay and they're found safe.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. Here's an article. MSNBC President Rashida Jones appeared open to hosting Donald Trump on air in a town hall format, telling Axios' Sarah Fisher that it would be a conversation if he requested to come on the network. Apparently, liberals are upset at that.
Oh.
Why is anybody at MSNBC or CNN upset if a Republican comes on, whoever the Republican is, and is asked questions by people that work at the network? Nobody at Fox cares, do they?
Not that I know of.
Nobody on Fox cares. In fact, why do conservatives and Republicans think different than Democrats? Why do they become infuriated if any Republican is given time and questioned on the networks that they watch, yet the reverse is true on Fox? If Biden wanted to come on Fox,
oh yeah,
and it would be, I'm trying to think who's left there.
Brett Baer.
Well, if it was since he did, I was thinking primetime more, but if was Brett Baer, since he interviewed Trump, if he interviewed Biden, that probably would get some record numbers on Fox, and nobody would be upset.
Yeah, right.
But that's the headline. The headline of the MSNBC is open to Trump town hall, angering liberals.
How dare you?
Well, that's what happened to CNN. Trump went on there and people got furious. Liberals got furious. Why do liberals get furious when on the networks that they watch, a guest comes on and is questioned by people who work for that network?
Now I want it to happen just so I can see them cry. I pretty much know how it's going to go down.
Well,
I just want to see the reaction.
Wait a minute. Trying to think. Has Ramaswamy's been on MSNBC, hasn't he? I think so. And
He's on CNN saying goodbye to Don Lemon. He was there for Don Lemon's farewell. Swan song.
I wasn't even thinking of Ramaswan song. I wasn't even thinking about that. I find it interesting that the liberals get all upset.
Yeah.
If it's
Yeah,
like,
of course.
why not?
How dare you?
It's your chance to cross-examine him.
Right.
Why would you be upset?
Right.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know what I saw yesterday? I was waiting. I'd ordered something, and I was been waiting for it to come in, and so I keep checking spam, to see if I've gotten it in. It's something that I ordered a month ago,
Right.
and so I keep checking on it. So I was just going back into my spam just to see my personal email. What's in spam? What's coming in from spam? And all of a sudden, I come upon this one spam. Wow. And they get the email, and it was basically it was extortion. It was we know, and we've been monitoring your email, and we know that you've been visiting sexually explicit websites, and you have. This is why I'm laughing, and you have sent your own films to these sexually explicit websites, and you are the main focus of many of these films on these porn sites.
Yeah.
And they were attempting to extort money in payments of like over $1,400.
Mm-hmm.
And I could use Bitcoin. and I'm dying laughing as I'm reading this, saying, like, so I'm like the lead in this?
Well,
really?
my eyebrows would raise because I'd be like, so you're saying somebody was impressed to the point that they put it on a website?
Exactly.
Can I get more info here? Because
it's like, really? Sounds like I'm old. That sounds like an awful lot of work. Where's the...
That doesn't jive with the rumors I've heard about me.
Exactly.
At all.
I'm thinking to myself, probably laughter was not what they were expecting when they sent. And they sent it a while back. It was a couple months ago.
Yeah.
I was just going back to see how much spam I had, and who it was from. And I got to that one, I'm like, well, that's interesting. And then it said, and if you don't pay it, then we're going to inform all of your. We're going to send the evidence to all of your family, your coworkers. It's like,
promise?
Really?
How about if I pay you to do that?
Well, will it help my street cred?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I started wondering.
You definitely got the wrong person.
What was funny
I don't know what you think you got.
What was funny was I'm thinking to myself, I can imagine the people that get it that are panicking.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. I better pay this money.
Yeah. It's like the bot calls, and it's always a bot voice. This is the IRS. You owe us money. You must pay us $12,432 by the end of the day.
Why?
We will freeze all your assets.
Why? Hunter didn't have to.
Yeah. I'm like, come on, Jack.
That's your response.
Come on, Jack. You're not going to freeze any assets.
God save the Queen, man.
Yeah, man. Come on.
Oh, I was reading
no joke.
David Harzani's column, and he was talking about the fact that it was it Axios or somebody? It was somebody, maybe it was the New York Times, I don't know. But he was talking about the fact that everybody knows something's wrong with Biden.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah.
It's Joe Biden is not okay. He wrote it in the Federalist.
Yeah.
And he said the other day Joe Biden ended a big gun control speech in Connecticut with the words, God save the Queen, man. Why did the president express adoration for the departed Brit monarch? Was he confused about royal succession? Is he a Sex Pistols fan? We already did that one. Mm-hmm. Who knows? When asked about the incident, White House aides offered nonsensical and conflicting answers because they have absolutely no idea, and neither does the president. It's likely that he spontaneously used a cool-sounding phrase, much like when your elderly neighbor tells you to keep on trucking or whatever for no apparent reason. It happens. And this is the part we were talking about yesterday. So I was talking over the weekend and talking about the things, and people say, well, shouldn't we get upset about people making fun about the president? Is anybody getting upset?
Right.
Because he's I said, well, no, because they claim nothing's wrong with him, that he's as aware as can possibly be. Mm-hmm. That's actually part of the joke, is everybody knows that the White House and his family are lying about it.
Right.
And it says, and then he writes here, yet Axios writer Alex Thompson points out that Biden has an arsenal of wacky phrases. And he contends that these wacky phrases are sometimes weaponized by Republicans to insinuate the 80-year-old president is in mental decline, end of quote. And that's the point right there.
Right.
They're just saying you're using it to take a shot, but there's nothing wrong with him. He is fine. He is wonderful. He is as quick. He has more energy than somebody half his age. Well, that's all a load of horse manure, and everybody knows it.
Now, I know a lot of lazy people half his age, but that's not the point. It's very clear to everyone that there are cognitive and physical issues with the current president. Anyone who's observing and being intellectually honest knows it. You can't deny it. And when they keep saying nothing is wrong, well, then the other people that are saying you have to stop making fun of somebody who's elderly because this is not funny, well, they're saying nothing's wrong with him. They're going out of their way to make sure that, well, no, he trips on stage. He falls on stage. Yeah, but did you see how fast he got up?
Yeah, so
that's their defense.
But most reporters who pretend perceptions of Biden's decline are due to his propensity for homesped maxims or previously unknown stuttering problems almost surely wouldn't find him fit enough to babysit their kids. Every week, the president of the United States says something completely bonkers, and everyone goes on with their day. We're not talking about his propensity to lie about politics or his blustery lifelong fabulism. Quote, in parentheses, his folksiness, the New York Times recently explained, can veer into personal folklore, with the factual edges shaved off to make them more powerful for audiences. That's from the New York Times. Back to Harzani, we're talking about his inability to articulate simple ideas without notes, and often with notes. There are rarely any fact checks of these statements. How can there be? They don't even make sense as lies. There is no hand-wringing about the role of competency in our democracy. There is no discussion about the 25th Amendment. Just listen to one of his speeches. Quote, put a pistol on a brace, it turns into a gun, makes it more, you can have a higher caliber weapon, higher caliber bullet coming out of that gun. End of quote, the president explained before wishing Her Majesty the best. This was complete gibberish. There is so much gibberish. Only a couple of days before the God Save the Queen comment, Biden informed a crowd gathered for a League of Conservation Voters endorsement that we had plans to build a railroad from the Pacific all the way to the Indian Ocean, which must really have impressed everyone in attendance. We have plans to build in Angola one of the largest solar plants in the world, he went on. I can go on, but I'm not. I'm going off script. I'm going to get into trouble. A few days before the railroad comment, Biden couldn't remember Winston Churchill's name when speaking to the Prime Minister of Britain. Listen, I'm not great with names myself, and I'm sure as an 80-year-old I'd have trouble recalling world leaders, but I'm confident that I wouldn't think of myself competent enough to be the most powerful man in the world, and neither should Biden. And he just goes into everything that has happened here. It says everybody ages differently and talks about, Fetterman's problems. But the thing is, it really is, when you think about Trump, how they went crazy at Trump, remember?
Yeah. Yep.
You might recall that after the former President Trump gingerly navigated a ramp after giving a speech at West Point in 2020, the New York Times headline the next day was, Trump's halting walk down ramp raises new health questions. Mm-hmm. The president, the Times went on, also appeared to have trouble raising a glass of water to his mouth during a speech at West Point a day before he turned 74, the oldest a president has been in his first term. Well, the sitting president is now 6 years older than Trump at the time. He would be a decade older should he finish a second term. But that's the really amazing thing. It's become a joke. There seems to be no concern in the nation at all about the fact that we have a president that I don't trust to make an instant decision that a commander-in-chief would need to make. And neither does a hell of a lot of other Americans at this point.
Yeah. And there was something to, and I think that ramp thing had to do with, was there rain? The ramp was kind of slippery. I know one ramp that he came down, I don't know if it was that one or another one at his rally. I think this one was at the rally. It was wet. And he came down and he took smaller steps because he realized it was slippery. And then it was at the rally because he joked, I think, one of the first things he said. I think the opposition watered down that ramp and made it slippery or something like that. But he joked about it. And the media lost their ever-loving mind.
Yeah.
Well, eating cheeseburgers on his plane and fries, and then they would tear it down and have a nutritionalist. Well, this is the problem with that. At his age, you can't do that, and blah, 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 blah. And then Dr. Ronnie Jackson would come out and say, well, no, look, he could use a few pounds, or he could lose a few pounds, but, he's healthy. And it was, well, no, he's way too big for his age. He's eating cheeseburgers. The Secret Service is having to go to McDonald's in the middle of the night to get him Big Macs or whatever. And they were losing their ever-loving mind. But with Biden, he's great.
He's great. And any comment any comment that you make on the president and his cognitive state is simply political.
Yeah. Yep.
It's you're weaponizing to insist that an 80-year-old president is in mental decline. You're weaponizing what's happening here. Well, when it comes to walking, though.
Yeah, right.
I sit here, and I'm in really good health, I believe, and I think my mind is very good.
Mm-hmm.
But I sit here for an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I get up to walk out.
Yeah.
It takes me all the way down the hall for my knees to not be stiff anymore.
Right.
I'm limping.
Right.
I mean, I'm shuffling a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But then, I can go out and swim a mile. I can ride the bicycle 20 miles, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I pay for it later on, and we've all done it. I mean, I'll ride the bicycle 10 miles and come back, and then you sit down, just to catch your breath for about 15 minutes. You get up, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
and you're limping around. So
Right.
that just shows you the fact that something that can be explained away very easily for anybody in their 60s or 70s was viewed by the liberals as, we need to question whether this president is competent to be president.
Yeah.
And with Biden, when the cognitive problems are absolutely obvious, it's like with Fetterman, too. They're just ignoring the Fetterman stuff the other day was brutal.
Oh, man, it was
brutal.
It was not good.
And then with him wearing, the hoodie
Mm-hmm.
on it, you're looking, you're saying, I mean, you see them both up there, you're like, what the hell's going on with the Democratic leadership right now?
Right. Then you throw in the issues with Dianne Feinstein.
Dianne Feinstein, the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, not good.
Well, they seem to be willing to talk about her more.
Yeah, because they want to get that. They want to get somebody in that seat quickly.
Yeah.
Adam Schiff is running out of time, I guess.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up following the top of the hour, new polling out there. Wait till you see how many people want to move out of the United States.
Oh?
It's like 21% right now. But the reason?
Mm-hmm.
Financial.
Oh.
And the vast majority, think about this, the vast majority of those that wish to move out
Mm-hmm.
during the Biden administration and over the last few years that the country's basically been controlled by Democrats is young Democrats.
Wow.
We'll get to that coming up, plus a radical liberal transgender activist movement update and more.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Listen when and where you want. If you can't listen live overnight, just see the latest CNN poll. Biden's numbers, lowest ever, 32% favorability in the CNN poll.
Yeah.
I really wonder, sorry, but the conspiracy theorist in me, and it does exist, way, way down. You just wonder, are the pollsters trying to tank it so they get Biden out of there?
Well, or just change your methodology in your in your questioning, in your survey, right? Just a little bit. Because we always talk about methodology. Okay, that matters, how you ask the question. Also how you qualify, we think, how you qualify the respondents. Now, if we ran a polling firm, it would go out of business in the first week because it would be so involved, it would be enormously expensive to do just one poll. But
yes, well, for example, if you ask the question, Do you believe that Joe Biden committed illegal influence peddling in the White House?
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
before they answered, you'd have to say, number one, do you know what influence peddling is? Number two, have you heard about the story about what's going on?
And number three, name the three branches of government.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But you look at it, and what's interesting is that the polls, we would go back and look, and all of a sudden there would be something that would, like going into the midterm. His approval numbers started to improve, and we were like, yeah, based on what? And now you see things are eroding. But if you look at 32%, now you're getting into territory of a second term for a president toward the end of their second term when things aren't going well, and you point to someone like George W. Bush. And the economy was, tanking, and we were at war, and people didn't want to be at war any longer. They didn't want to be in Iraq. They didn't want to be in Afghanistan. All these things, cumulative things.
I don't think his numbers were near 32%.
No.
W at that point.
But the second term is always when you see that very low number. And I think this would be the lowest, I think, so far, right? 32?
Yeah, for the CNN poll, yes. Yeah, I think once in the Civic poll, he was down to 32, which is just as bottom as you can possibly get.
Yeah, right.
As a president. So it'll be interesting to watch that. So here we go.
All right.
1 in 5 Americans expresses a strong desire to permanently move to another country if given the opportunity, according to a recent TIP poll. Financial considerations significantly drive this desire. Young adults exhibit the strongest yearning. Do you yearn? I think that was a Seinfeld episode, too. Yeah, because I think Kramer asked, when they wanted to go to L.A., then Kramer asked George, do you yearn? Interestingly, Democrats and liberals are more inclined to want to leave the United States.
No.
The online survey was conducted at the beginning of May. The survey asked respondents, if you had a choice, would you choose to move permanently to another country or stay in the United States? 21% said move permanently to another country. 66% stay in the United States. 13% not sure. Democrats lead. Well, actually, liberals lead. Those who identify as liberals. 27% wish to leave. Democrats, 24%. Republicans, 13%. Those that say they're conservative, 17%. Among the 36 demographic groups that they analyzed, the 18 to 24-year-old age group exhibits the highest desire to leave, with a staggering 36% expressing their willingness to do so if given the choice. If given the opportunity, over a quarter, 28% of individuals in the 25 to 44 age group express the intention to leave. It is worth noting that as age increases, the desire to leave diminishes, with only 8% of individuals in the age 65-plus group expressing that wish. Interestingly enough, they say financial considerations, but the group most likely to be on a fixed income and a lower income is the 65-plus group. I think that's interesting to know, since they say in simple terms financial considerations are the main driving force.
Right, yeah.
Here are the differences across various financial aspects. Maintaining your current standard of living, 81% of those wanting to move abroad expressed concerns compared to 67% of those wanting to stay in the U.S. Having enough savings for retirement, 78% of those wanting to move abroad have worries, while 64% of those wanting to stay in the U.S. share the same concern. Being able to pay medical or health care costs, ability to pay utility bills, that's going to go up drastically in the next few years. Affording mortgage payments or rent, making on-time credit card payments, making on-time auto lease payments, financing children's education. Inflation has had the greatest impact on individuals who wish to move abroad than those who wish to stay in the United States.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Young people want to leave. Why? And why don't old people want to leave? And old people actually are limited, much more limited in their potential of income because they're older at that point and most likely not working, the majority, and most likely on a fixed income. So why don't they want to leave? I'll answer this question being in that demographic.
Because it hurts to move?
Well,
Physically?
okay. All right, it does. It's a hassle, number one, and when you get old, you don't like hassles. No. Where do you go? Where do you go? Where do you go that's better?
Because you're not looking for work.
No, not looking for work. Where do you go that's better? Now, for me, for example, if I did talk radio in Canada, I'd be in jail.
Right.
So, sorry, you didn't use the proper pronoun, sir. What is it? The CRTC is coming down on you big time.
Yeah.
I believe that's their version of the FCC. So
Well, you would have 3 hots and a cot.
That's what I'm looking for. Send me to jail. I want security. Wow, that'd be interesting to find out. And they found out the majority of Democrats would rather go to jail where they had 3 meals a day, a cot.
I don't have to deal with inflation there.
Color TV. Remember that was big back then. What do you mean inmates have color TV? Color TV, and every part of their day they're told what to do.
Little exercise time in the yard.
And most of them wish to be in solitary confinement so they don't catch any viruses.
Yeah. It's perfect.
Oh, my God. The perfect Democrat nirvana, the perfect liberal nirvana, prison.
I mean, they were shouting for we need fewer prisons, but now it might be.
That's because they want to move in.
Wait a minute. Have you seen the price of rent?
Free rent.
Free rent. We get meals. Little time in the yard.
You don't have to worry about having a car.
Right.
You don't need that expense.
Right.
Wow. Are we going to get to that point where liberalism finally gets to the point of saying, well, the jail thing is pretty cool.
Well, and technically, you work from home.
They'd be complaining.
There's that.
Go to the workshop? No, I want to work from my cell.
Right. I mean, what's not to love?
Oh, my God. Is that where liberalism is heading? We want to spend our life in jail.
Right.
It gives us everything that we've ever wanted in life.
And now that actual criminals aren't in jail, it's safer. Maybe this is the whole plot, and we've been missing it.
How stupid have we been?
The violent criminals are on the street.
I mean,
we're safe in here.
I mean, a lot of liberals are into the tiny home movement. This is really a tiny home.
Exactly. I don't have to worry about Hunter being my cellmate.
There's no worry about ever being materialistic.
Right. Don't have to worry about Hillary being my cellmate.
Hunter, Joe.
None of that.
Oh,
the violent criminals are, because of bail reform, they're out on the street. They're not here.
Oh, man. I just love that. I love when we get off on tangents that actually you can say,
well,
I wonder if that's...
And technically, it is a tiny home. It's 8 by 8. That's about as tiny of a home as you can get. It's right out of their playbook. Perfect for them. Will just live in prison.
But they say the vast majority among let me start again here.
Okay.
They talk about job sensitivity here. We classify a household as being job sensitive when at least one family member actively seeks full-time employment, or if the family has concerns about potential layoffs within the next year. Well, that's everybody.
Yeah.
Who's not worried about getting laid off in the next year? My entire life I've worried about, will I have a job a week from now?
Yeah.
Well, not anymore. Among American households, but then again, I'm in the elderly demographic.
Yeah.
Among American households, 54% exhibit job sensitivity. Well, that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
However, for those who want to move permanently out of the country, the percentage increases to 70%. 40% of U.S. households have a member actively seeking a full-time job. However, among those who want to move permanently, that percentage increases to 55%. Additionally, 35% of U.S. households express concerns about a member potentially losing their job within the next 12 months. However, among those desiring to move abroad permanently, the percentage increases to 51%. Well, I ask, where? If you're worried about job security, where? Where do you want to go? If you're worried about cost of living, where do you want to go? A lot of, you've got retired people that say, okay, I think I'll move to, we know some people that move to Mexico to retire in Mexico. Why? It's so much cheaper.
Right.
Do I want to go to Mexico? Absolutely not.
Nope. But
No.
the idea for a lot of retirees is I had some neighbors that moved to a neighboring state, actually. They moved to New Mexico, where they were moving in New Mexico was much cheaper in terms of cost of living. And they said, we have our retirement. It's going to go further there. We like the area. That's where we're going.
And many people in California are thinking the exact same thing. In the very high tax states, you may see that happening, where people say, I'm going to retire. Well, you see it. We're going to retire from New York to Florida.
Yeah, that's been going on for ages.
Yeah. But out of the country, and that's where 65 plus, absolutely not. Vast majority don't want to go.
Right.
They want to stay here.
Right.
I can't think of any other country I'd wish to live in.
No.
Not one.
Not for a moment.
And that isn't based on the fact that I fit that upper demographic either. I don't ever remember having that thought ever in my entire life.
No.
If you ask me that question.
No.
No matter what my financial situation, it would be, are you out of your mind?
Yeah. No, I'm not leaving.
No way.
No. No.
So that's just interesting, though.
Yeah, I don't know where you would go, but I don't know where the younger generation thinks they would go, where it would be more plentiful jobs and lower cost of living.
And freedom.
Right. I don't know what, and is it one of these passing thoughts? Like, oh, yeah, I'd like to get out of here. And, yeah, but did you really think it through? Because when you're old, we think it through. And it's not that long. It doesn't take that long.
No, that's a great point. We think it through. Well, where? Well, Belize. And what are the employment opportunities there?
Right. I could see someone saying, again, with out of ignorance and not knowing, well, I want to go here, I want to go. By the way, a lot of countries would say, when you come here, you have to be productive. You can't be a drain on our society.
Right. There's no quiet quitting in those countries.
Exactly.
By the way.
You come here because you hear about socialized medicine. But we want to know that you're working, that you're contributing.
But still, the demographic that would be most affected by that health-wise, Medicare exists, but still, they don't want to go.
No.
866-98 Red Eye.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Drivers must always be prepared for a roadside inspection. This means drivers should always have their personal, vehicle, and company credentials organized and ready, and having any shipment paperwork such as bills of lading or hazardous material shipment emergency response information organized and ready for the inspection official. Just an FYI, the top 2 violations written against drivers every year, as well as during Operation Road Check, are log general form and manner and log not current. Both are completely avoidable if the driver keeps the log accurate, compliant, and current at all times. Having the vehicle ready for inspection involves the driver conducting daily inspections and making sure any problems that are discovered are immediately corrected. Vehicle readiness also requires the company to make sure that the vehicle is current on all scheduled maintenance and that the maintenance schedule is adequate. This will make sure the driver is being given a sound vehicle to start with. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
Join.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I think the most interesting thing is really the whole thing that has driven people that wish to move out of the country, which are mostly Democrats and liberals, by a big margin, who want to move out of the country, is inflation.
Yeah.
Think about that. Something that was, in essence, created by the Democrats is the major reason that is affecting young people that are liberals and Democrats that wish to move out of the country.
Gary McNamara and Eric Harley taking your calls. 1-866-90-RED-EYE.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Download our app today and listen when and where you want, if you can't listen live overnight. All right, so it's time for a radical liberal transgender activist movement update.
Okay.
Riley Gaines yesterday tweeted that Harvard apparently sent this to the Harvard women's swimming team. All right? About Leah Thomas's involvement. She was made aware of the letter, which reads, now, I'm going to read you the paragraph that she put in her tweet and then how she deciphers it. Okay?
All right.
But it's really, she does a great job here. Here's what Harvard apparently sent to the women swimmers. The conversations and controversies surrounding Leah have been challenging to read. In particular, they focus on what is fair and what is ethical. Regardless of your personal stance, Leah has been incredibly transparent and is abiding by all NCAA rules. That is a fact. Having watched the transition firsthand, I can tell you that if it wasn't for the support of the teams, Leah may not be here today. Life is more important than politics. We will never tell you what to do or what to believe if it doesn't benefit our team from winning a championship, but it doesn't benefit our team from winning a championship if we spend our collective energy getting annoyed or frustrated. Let the NCAA figure out their next steps. Let us focus on our team And if the press reaches out, then please direct them to our sports media office and ideally refrain from comment. Okay, that's the part of the letter that Riley Gaines put on her tweet. Now, how she deciphers what that actually means. All right, here's what she says. Let me divert your attention from inherently feeling like something is wrong by asking you to focus on how great Leah has been. Let me emotionally blackmail you into accepting mistreatment because otherwise you are complicit in a potential death. Exchanging your fair treatment for someone else's benefit, a male in this case, is a justifiable cause. And the fair treatment of women is just politics anyway, Gaines wrote on Tuesday, then continued, while we won't tell you what to do, we're telling you it is a bad choice to fight this. Let the men in charge at the NCAA decide your fate. Immerse your thoughts and feelings into something else to ignore the obvious injustice you face. Let other people decide if you are worthy of fair competition without your input or voice. Oh, and finally, don't talk.
Yeah. Don't say a word.
Wow.
Yeah, but that is the state of where we are. I mean, it's basically lined out. There can't be any dissent. And who knows it better? I mean, has anyone gone as far as she's gone?
From Riley Gaines?
From
the
perspective of
even the other swimmer, I can't think of her name.
Being an athlete and really speaking out, and now campaigning.
Not only campaigning, but deciphering, doing what we like to do, which is deciphering exactly the message that they're telling you. To break it, she's breaking it down. She's breaking it down into elements that everybody can understand. She's cutting through the BS.
I mean, she could have stayed home. She could have said nothing.
Yeah.
It would have been perfectly fine. Nobody would have ever known her concerns. Nobody would have gone after her. Nobody would have targeted her. And she chose to stand up. Because
she's actually doing what you have to do if you're going to get in the fight. You cannot get in the fight halfway.
You can't say something and then and there's the back and forth of the ebb and flow of what the woke crowd will and won't let you get away with. And she clearly knew this going in. You can't just bring up a question or issue a counter opinion or whatever and then walk away. You have to go in head first, and you have to stay in the fight. Otherwise, they will keep coming after you. Now, they're going to keep coming after her, but she's not standing down.
No, she's not. And, in a way, I mean, again, by doing what she did, I mean, we were both laughing when we read her response, which means she's learning to mock.
Yeah.
She's learning that mocking effect by deciphering what they're actually saying in simple terms.
Yeah.
You end up mocking the stupidity of the radical, and the dishonesty of and the hypocrisy and whatever is out there. And you mock it effectively because people read that and laughed, going, oh, yeah, she's right. And you have to go, as we learned a long time ago, you can't go halfway. You can't say, well, I sort of see their point. You end up like a Bud Light or a Target. If you do that, well, I'm going to try to see it both ways. There are no both ways here.
Nope. Don't you dare say everybody is welcome. Because they don't see it that way.
No. And we talked about this yesterday when we talked about, when the whole thing of, well, we're about being inclusive. Well, no, you've actually changed the definition of inclusive to mean you're not inclusive.
Right.
And this was on the detransitioning.
Right.
The young woman, and the movie that was out about detransitions and people that decided to do that, and now how the radical transgender activist movement, claims they were successful in keeping that movie out of the AMC theaters. And they're celebrating it, and they say this is about inclusion and respect. Well, it's the opposite. Well, if it's about inclusion and respect, you want to hear their story.
Once we eliminate the opposition altogether, then we can include everybody.
But see, that's the kind of stuff that's the kind of stuff that's mocking, and it's truthful, but it's mocking and it's funny. Yeah. And if you're going to do it, you need to be on all cylinders.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, is that too fossil fuel related?
Maybe.
Am I not? Do I need to be more woke in my analogies?
I do notice higher emissions coming out from your side of the studio, but that's just me. The entire equation, though, requires them to eliminate the opposition. You cannot have anybody with any, and they want to, if they had their way, it would be just like Canada. If you say the wrong thing, if you hurt someone's feelings with your words, you're going to jail.
Right, and you see that's what, California, they're headed onto that path. We brought that to you last week, where they want to make it, well, if you don't agree with the pronouns, if you don't call your child by the pronouns that your child wishes to be called, then that would be child abuse.
Yep.
And we see where that's going to lead. It will lead right to where it led in Canada, even though, based on the Supreme Court decision on the last time California tried this, with some employees mandated to use pronouns, the Supreme Court of California came out and said, sorry, that's unconstitutional. You can't do that.
Right.
Well, you saw it. You see the story in it was Wall Street Journal editorial, which is, we've talked about this. The Wall Street editorial page is actually a news page, because they'll actually cover stories that people don't cover and then give their analysis on it. But where the legislature apparently is going to pass, mail-in voting, and it's not allowed. I mean, absentee ballots are supposed to be, only by, critical need, or if you're out of the country, or if you can prove that you're sick, that's it. And the legislature, and again, the Supreme Court of New York came out and said, you can't do that.
Right.
You can't, they did this back when they tried to do this before. But so the legislature comes and passes the same law, but says, well, no, this is about early voting, not absentee ballots. It's like you're just changing the definition of it.
Right.
And so they continually try to go against the law. Even in California, they try to go against California law and the California Constitution. And so it's not surprising that the legislature is trying it again in California to punish people, to compel people to use certain speech. You must use this speech, and if you don't, we'll punish you. We'll destroy your life. We'll put you in jail.
Yeah.
That's already happening. That's the goal of the Democrats, and has been for a few years in the state of California. We've already seen it.
Yep. If you can control the language, if you can control how people talk, you control how they think and behave.
No, but I'm very happy because Riley Gaines says, every time I see her do something like this, I say, congrats, that's great. You have no other recourse, though. When you get involved in the arena of ideas against the insane left, you go full bore and you never stop. And you never stop for the rest of your life and expect to get attacked the rest of your life. Because that's what's going to happen because this isn't going away from the left. They're going to keep pushing this.
Oh, yeah.
You have to dedicate yourself and say, okay, I'm going to be a human being that's going to stand up for what's right, because these people are insane as to what they're promoting, and I don't care. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care what it costs. I will do the right thing.
The fight is worthy.
The fight is worthy, and that's a scary scenario for a lot of people to think about when they are so incredibly intimidated And young people, especially when they've been intimidated and brainwashed for their entire lives as if they're doing something wrong.
Well, this is why they have, again, as they move the goalposts continuously, now the indoctrination must start at the very beginning. We must teach this to 5-year-olds, and we must gain control for genital mutilation surgery of those underage. And this is where we are. This is the battle right now. It is the legal battle. And you saw the district judge in Arkansas saying, you can't, it's unconstitutional for you to ban surgery for minors. Wow. This is going to the high court.
Was that a district federal court judge or a state judge?
It's the 8th, I think it's the 8th Circuit.
Oh, was it? Okay. Yeah.
So this will, one way or the other, whether it's that case or the Tennessee case, it's going to the Supreme Court. Wow. And it could be, think about this, it could be a year from now.
And that's the case, because where this is going is there's 2 points. First off, there's the left that wishes, number one, for children to be override their parents and override their doctors even, where the child makes a decision. Then there's the other part of it where the left is trying to push it. If they can't get it all the way, it's that parents can approve their child getting this surgery.
Yeah.
Where 70% of America disagrees with that and says, nope, sorry. When you're talking about permanent mutilation, the parents don't have a say. The child will have a say when they get to be 18.
Okay, this is a U.S. District Court, and the appeal will go to the Arkansas, by the way, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders and their Attorney General, Tim Griffin, said that they will appeal to the 8th Circuit. So it goes to the 8th Circuit next. But eventually this is going to get to, if they don't get a remedy to this, this is going to get to SCOTUS. One way or the other, these cases are going to get to the Supreme Court, and they may get there. An opinion may come down as soon as next year. Think about that. You could see this case getting into the high court this fall and an opinion being in that session next year, right at election time. Wow. That's crazy.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
If you
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Just interesting article in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. Heather Gillers about Wall Street is now betting against America's downtowns. Investors are paying less for bonds linked to the New York subways and buses. Downtown-focused real estate investment trusts trade at less than half their pre-pandemic levels.
Yeah.
Bondholders are demanding extra interest to hold office building debt.
And those REITs, real estate investment trusts, used to be a pretty good, solid investment into those, if you talk about those metro areas, those downtown areas, and they were thriving. And then now people are leaving in droves, including other corporations, and it was only a matter of time before this happened.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.